What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. It is Sunday, August 3rd. We've made it into August. Summer is, the wind down of summer has begun. It's starting to get a little darker, a little more quickly, a little earlier. Starting to cool down maybe just a little bit, and football is on the horizon. The University of Utah and BYU and Utah State began their football fall training camps this week in anticipation of the start of the football season at the end of August. So we've got about a month until it actually kicks off, but these teams are preparing. They have started practices, and we've got a little information for you on what's going on at these camps. Obviously, there were plenty of off-season changes among all these different programs. We've got a new coach, Bronco Mendenhall, up in Logan at Utah State, former BYU coach. We've got new quarterbacks at BYU after the departure of Jake Retzloff, and a new quarterback at University of Utah as well, with Devin Dampier coming from New Mexico, along with his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck. So a lot of news, a lot of new faces going on around the world of football, and we'll go south to north, I suppose. We'll start with BYU, typically because that's probably where the most change happened. With, like I mentioned, Jake Retzloff leaving, there is now a three-way quarterback battle going on down in Provo between McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, and Bear Bachmeier. Obviously, there's work to be done here in separating from one another. Bear Bachmeier is kind of the fun one. First of all, because his name is Bear. His brother's name is Tiger. Bear and Tiger Bachmeier now on BYU. His brother is not a quarterback, but Bear is. True freshman coming in. He had originally committed to Stanford, but decided to come to BYU with his brother. And he's kind of won over media and certainly some fans already, just in a few short days of training camp. And telling the story of how he got his name, how his brother got his name, and also showing off some fun things on the football field as well. The portions of practice that the media are allowed to view during training camp is pretty limited, so haven't been able to see everything. But there is certainly a battle going on. And the one thing that makes, I think, and according to our guy Sean Walker as well, over on KSL.com, interesting about this quarterback battle is the BYU defense, which has been pretty stout over the last couple years under defensive coordinator Jay Hill. It's not making it easy to find that starting quarterback. And up at Utah, new awesome offensive coordinator, like I mentioned, Jason Beck. He went to BYU. I believe also spent some time with Bronco Mendenhall at New Mexico and Virginia. So he brings in kind of a new philosophy, hoping to reignite this Utah offense that was a bit stagnant last season. Not able to score a lot of points, a lot of turnovers. Obviously, there were some quarterback issues with freshman Isaac Wilson going through his fair share of issues, and the offensive coordinator, Andy Ludwig, last year ends up getting fired. So bringing a new guy to kind of revamp the offense, and it's kind of not totally sure what that's going to look like yet, whether it'll be more of a pass-heavy or run-heavy offense. For more on that, please do check out Josh Furlong's work writing on KSL.com for both the Utah and BYU training camp information. Plenty of stuff there on KSL between Josh and Sean. They've been at these practices. I have not, so I'm kind of relying on them to relay a lot of this information. But I appreciate what they're doing. And please, for more in-depth information, go read their stories. As far as other news this week, a lot of it, I'm sure you're all going to love this. If you came for football, you're going to get a different kind of football, and that is soccer, as it's called here in the United States, because there was a lot of news between RSL and the Utah Royals. They decided to drop a couple bombs on Friday, a Friday news dump, as they call it, just before the weekend to kind of just throw things at the wall, throw things at the media, see how they handle it going into the weekend. And if it's bad news, you hope it kind of goes under the rug. And if it's good news, well, you send your fans off to have a fun weekend with more optimism. So it kind of split those two different ways for these two teams. For RSL, more positively, I would say, by bringing in a new striker, Ruan Cruz from Brazil. 6'2", 6'3" striker, big guy, can get up there, finish off goals with his feet and with his head. And he was officially announced on Friday as the new designated player for RSL. So historically, there were 3 designated player spots, which meant kind of the highest paid players on the team. They've changed the structure a little bit so that teams can decide between having 2 of those spots and 4 of the under 22 spots, which RSL has used quite a bit for players like Diego Luna, Andreas Gomez. So you can either have 2 of designated and 4 of under 22, or 3 and 3. And RSL decided to go with the 2 and 4. So for a long period of time this year, they only had 1 designated player, which was Diogo Gonçalves. I've mentioned him a couple times on this podcast. Attacking midfielder from Portugal, had his fair share of struggles, not being able to score a whole lot, but he's kind of found his form a little bit. And at the very least, is kind of getting some more assists in there, and is just a little more involved in the offense in general, I would say. But the other spot, along with Diogo, it was Chicho Arango, the striker who was traded in January. And after he left, that spot was left vacant. So there was only 1 designated player on RSL's roster for about 7 months until this announcement on Friday of Ruan Cruz from Brazil, from a club called Botafogo. I'm probably butchering that because I don't speak Portuguese. But that is also where Jefferson Savarino went after leaving RSL. So some familiarity between these two clubs. They've done some business before, and they were able to bring in Cruz, who they hope to kind of be able to fill that Chicho Arango spot a little bit. Get in the box, finish off crosses, finish off opportunities, just be that that quote killer in front of goal that head coach Pablo Mastroeni always talks about that they're looking for in that offensive in the attack for RSL. So hopefully he can come in and be the finisher and get some goals. And the other piece of news in the soccer world that dropped on Friday was a little less positive for Utah soccer fans, and that was that Ali Sentnor, the up-and-coming number 1 draft pick, U.S. female young soccer player of the year for the Utah Royals, was leaving. Ali Sentnor requested a trade. That news was not that detail did not come out initially that she requested the trade, but over in recent days that has become apparent that was the case, that she saw her development and her goals and ambitions being a little beyond where the Utah Royals were at this point. So began to talk with the club about possible moves, and it was announced on Friday that she was being traded to the Kansas City Current for a transfer fee of $600,000, which, if you're familiar with soccer transfer fees in general, if you're a men's soccer fan, European soccer fan, that may not sound like a whole lot, but that's actually quite high for women's soccer. In fact, it would be the 6th highest transfer fee of all time in women's soccer. The highest ones have kind of hovered right around $1 million. Naomi Girma, U.S. Women's National Team defender, was the highest last year when she went to Chelsea, and I believe hers was right around $1 million. So anything above that 400, 500, certainly $600,000 range is pretty big for a women's soccer transfer, and that's what the Royals got in return for their young star. Obviously, for those who have listened, for those who follow KSL.com, you'll know that she broke out with the U.S. women's national team this year, got her first goal earlier in the winter, and then got a brace in a game, got 2 goals, really impressing head coach Emma Hayes with the national team, and kind of just became a constant presence at just 21 years old with that team. So very impressive young player. Obviously, the Royals knew that, drafting her number 1 2 years ago out of the University of North Carolina. And she had a season and a half here in Utah, was leading goal scorer last year, struggled a little bit more this year. I think she ended up with 4 goals, 5 assists total in her Utah Royals career. So she certainly, I think, developed quite a bit. She came in, obviously, with a great, powerful distance shot. She became known for those outside the box goals where she would just power it, curl it right past the goalie into the top corner of the goal. She came in with that, but was able to kind of, I think, develop maybe some other skills in between stuff, getting into the box, finishing off plays, or making the pass. Like I mentioned, kind of struggled a little bit with this season, as the entire Royals team has this season. Clearly, just 1 win. I'll have the update for you now, I guess, that they did resume their season on Sunday, a couple days after that trade, and got a 1-1 draw in Orlando against the reigning NWSL champions. But still looking for their second win. Haven't won a game since April. Just 1 win on the season. Last place in the NWSL. So looking at that, the big picture in context of where this Utah Royals team is, it's not hard to understand why a player wouldn't want to be here. But I think it's especially difficult for fans and also for the club, because clearly they want to build towards something. They want to collect young, promising players like Ali Sentnor that can develop and grow together into a contending team. And now you kind of have to go back to the drawing board a little bit. Obviously, you have a lot of money to spend on different things, different players. But, I've said this to a couple people. The odds of finding another Ali Sentnor are pretty slim. A player that can just score a goal from outside the box whenever she wants to, which is ironic that I say that, because Mina Tanaka, a forward for the Utah Royals, still on the team, did score a goal from outside the box in their game on Sunday in Orlando. So I guess you're kind of catching me in the lie a little bit there, and I certainly hope that the Royals do find another young, promising player of that same caliber. Mina Tanaka, not young, she's in her 30s. Same goes for a forward like Chloe Lacasse, who's on her way back from an ACL injury. A lot of older players, which is great. You need experienced players on the team, but I think this team has talked so much about the big picture, the long term, and building a perennial contender as opposed to flash in the pan. One good season, make a run in the playoffs, and then you're bad after that because all your players either leave or retire or are past their prime. So it certainly is a shot to the development of this club, and we'll just at this point we just have to wait and see how the $600,000 is spent. It's not all going to be sent over at once from Kansas City. It's going to be over several years in installments. So it's not like they can just go out and make the another 5th or 6th highest transfer fee in women's soccer history right away. It won't be that. It'll be little pieces here and there. The NWSL transfer window is open until somewhere around the end of the month, I think around the 23rd of August. So they do have some time over the next couple of weeks to bring in some new players. Only 12 games left in the NWSL season, though, so we are getting into the home stretch. It's looking very difficult for the Royals to make a playoff push. I believe they're 12 or 13 points behind that line. So if you just look at that alone, how many wins is that? That's 4 or 5 wins in a row that they would need to get, while also hoping that teams above them lose games. So A lot of stuff would have to happen to get back into that playoff race. By this point, last year, obviously, the Royals struggled in the first half of last season as well, but they got 2 wins. They kind of flipped things pretty quickly once Jimmy Coonrotz took over, and in August got a couple more wins. So unless they break off a 3 or 4 game winning streak here in the next month or so, that will become very difficult. And so I can see how that could be a tough selling point for if you're trying to bring in players right away, saying, hey, we've got these 12 games, we've got the rest of the fall, but, it's not really going to go anywhere after that, at least in the postseason. So maybe this turns into more of we wait and see what happens in the winter, make moves for next season. But it was a surprise. I think it was a surprise to everybody that a player that good and that young was traded. It's not quite to the Luka Doncic level, although there are some similarities. I think she hadn't had the success yet, but now she goes to a team in Kansas City who is number 1 in the league by a country mile at this point. Have a lot of really good players, and she'll be able to win more games certainly than she did in Utah. So wish Allie the best. So that is the other bit of news, the bit of bad news, I suppose, for Utah soccer fans. And like I mentioned, they ended up getting a draw in Orlando, which is a good result. Go on the road against the defending champions, and you get a point out of it. That is pretty solid. As for Real Salt Lake and their results over the weekend, they are currently in the Leagues Cup tournament against the Liga MX, the Mexico teams. They've had 2 games so far, Wednesday against America and then Saturday against Atletico de San Luis. Both games went to penalty shootouts because in Leagues Cup, if it's tied at the end of 90 minutes, you go right to a penalty shootout. First one worked great in RSL's favor. Rafael Cabral, the goalie, got 3 saves. RSL made their first 3 shots and made it through pretty easily and got 2 points out of that. Weird scoring system in Leagues Cup. You get a point for a draw after 90 minutes, another point for a shootout win, and then 3 points if you win in regulation. So it was 2 points in that first one for the draw and the shootout win. And then last night against San Luis, same situation. They get the point for the draw and regulation, but then RSL lost the shootout because Rafael Cabral did not save a single shot, and Justin Glad and Brian Vera missed their penalties. So that's the flip of the coin, right? It's about a 50-50 shot when you go up to take that penalty. If the goalie goes the right way, you're probably getting saved. If he goes the wrong way, you're in luck. So lucked out one time, got bad luck the second time for RSL. They'll play their final game of the first phase of Leagues Cup this upcoming Wednesday against Querétaro. And it's looking like that'll probably be their last game in Leagues Cup because they're far behind the top 4 line that they need to be at to advance to the quarterfinals, and a bunch of teams are ahead of them that haven't even played a second game. So a huge, unlikely uphill battle there, but it's probably for the best because RSL has to turn around and begin MLS play once again on Saturday, just 5-6 days from now. So the schedule would get pretty crowded pretty quick if they were to have both Leagues Cup and MLS play. And RSL is focusing on making the playoffs at this point. They're right on that line where they could make it or miss out on it. So I think shifting that focus toward MLS play and making the playoffs might be the best at this point for everybody involved. That is your soccer update and your sports update for this week. And we'll be back next week, I'm sure, with plenty more news. The news does not seem to stop. And as we get deeper into football training camps, I'm sure we'll have more info. Also, as NFL training camps start up, we're already into NFL preseason. So we'll have some locals in the pros, locals in the NFL news for you. Because, football only ramps up from here. And that seems to rule this state, high school, college, and professional level. So stay tuned for more on that as we get deeper into August. And we'll catch you guys next time.